North Hudson Public Works Committee. This meeting has been properly noticed. Roll call will show that all three committee members are present, along with our village engineer, Kevin, and we appreciate you being here, sitting outside in your car, patiently waiting for me to unlock the door, so thank you very much. The minutes from our last meeting, which was held 18 October, have been distributed for your prior review.
Move approval.
Second. I take the nod as being a yes, Mr. Wecken.
I wasn't at the meeting, but I would second that, yes.
All right. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the minutes are approved. Agenda item number 3, the first business item tonight, is a complaint regarding drainage problems and standing water in the street at 408 6th Street North. This is for discussion and a possible recommendation. So, Nate, why don't you take the podium so that the audio and video picks this up, and just bring us up to date, inform us. You and I have talked about this a little bit.
Nate
Tell
St.
us what the
Ours.
situation is.
There's been a drainage issue out in front of my mailbox at 408 6th Street North for a few years now, and last year I talked to Daryl about it, trying to figure out what we can do. You know, the sidewalk there's a problem on the sidewalk with ice and water buildup, and we've discussed that. Out in the road also, there's a problem with the water sitting in a low area there, and we've discussed that a little bit, and I'm here to try to get it resolved, to try to figure out what we can do. I'm willing to help to try to figure out what we can do to resolve this problem with the people driving by splashing water up onto the boulevard. It's getting out of the road. I do have some pictures I took last year of the water being there, sitting there, and not draining back to the catch basin back there. Last year I've been out there, I tried pushing it back there with a shovel. I've tried on the sidewalk, I've tried cutting a path into the boulevard to try to get it to drain out into the road, and then try to push it back to the drain itself. And
Can I see some pictures, Nate?
yeah, I do have pictures, so. From last year, that's looking.
And why don't you stay there, Nate, only just so your comments will be picked up by the mic. As Nate indicated, he and I did talk a little bit about this last year when it was melting in the spring. I went over and I saw what he was talking about, so I certainly can attest there's water standing there. What I'm unclear about is what the solution might be, but that's why you're here to talk about it. And then I want to turn to our Public Works Superintendent, Mark, who is aware of this, and
Yes.
talk about it.
Okay.
Anything more that you
This
want
just
to
started
add?
in the last few years? Or just because we had a lot of snow last year?
We've just had a lot of snow, and it's.
But typically on a...
I did talk to a couple years ago when they did redo 35. I did talk to the St. Croix County guys. I stopped them on the south end when they were heading north, and I talked to the public guy from there, and he said, "Well, what do you recommend?" And I told him to build it up in front of the in front of the mailbox, so it wouldn't run back to the storm sewer, the drain there. And it looks like they did build it up, but it's sunk just by, I mean, the curb is even actually sunk. And it's just the whole thing right from the sidewalk out is actually, you can see where it's sunk in.
Where's the next closest catch basin, Mark? Is there one within
There's
eyeshot?
one basically about where that street sign is. Basically right around
Down
that
here?
area. Yeah.
That
no,
far down?
No. The first one right in front of that vehicle that's coming towards you.
Right here?
Right around that area.
Just so that we're all very clear, and this is a question, I'm not making a comment, I just need to understand. This is a State Highway 35, so the jurisdiction of where this is at the curb, is that village jurisdiction? Is it a state highway? What?
No, we
Just what's the issue?
Basically what it is the way State Highway 35 is maintained is anything that's called the drive lane which is basically about 10 feet out from the curb, everything else. That point, the drive lane is actually maintained by St. Croix County, and they're paid to do that by the state of Wisconsin.
All right,
Anything outside the drive lane, I'm saying roughly 10 feet from there to the curb line, everything else is actually village.
okay, that's,
Yeah, like
so what we're
storm
talking about is
sewers
village.
and
yeah.
Sewers would
Yep.
be
Okay,
village responsibility.
okay.
All infrastructure underneath the road is all village responsibility.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
So I'm a little bit concerned, you know, with the water issue out in the road. I'm also concerned about the water issue on the sidewalk. And I guess my question to you guys was on the sidewalk, am I responsible for that sidewalk? Or is the village, or, I'm just worried about,
Slips and falls.
I'm just worried about somebody walking their dog or walking their kids and they hit that piece in the winter when it's sitting there full of water and it gets to be ice and falls and slips, and I just want to know if I'm responsible for it, because I'd like to try to put something up. I mean, I don't want somebody to, if that's the case, I need to try to keep
That
that.
raise an interesting point. I'm not an attorney. My guess is, since it really isn't your property, you're not really responsible if it's a public sidewalk.
Mhm.
But at the same time, you know, we ask people to shovel their sidewalk. So if you have an icy patch, do we require a resident to, say, throw some salt melt or some snow melt down or something like that? And at that point, if you start maintaining it, could you be culpable?
Yeah, the
I
biggest,
don't think
the
so.
village, the code book does say that you are a resident, if there's a sidewalk in front of the resident's property, that it is their responsibility to make sure it is kept clear of snow, ice, stuff like that.
Okay.
Well, that's in this particular case, it's an extraordinary thing to ask of somebody to keep an ice rink away from their house, so. We have a catch basin there and we can't get the water to get to it?
Well, actually, Kevin and I were out there, we took some shots. Nate was there with us,
Mhm.
and Kevin has that data for you, so I'm gonna let him take it from here.
So we were out there, I'd say about a week and a half ago, and just took some elevations on the curb just to see.
Uh-huh.
And I guess on the, I handed out cost estimate, 2 different options, and then some photos for you to look at.
Do I have that?
That's on the front of this.
I don't have that.
What do we need that?
Here we go.
Okay,
It's underneath
Yep,
one of the
got it.
files.
Go.
He just pummeled us with
Yeah.
paper today.
so when we took some shots out there, it looks like there's 2 low spots in the curb where the water isn't draining out. And if you,
Where those leaves are settled in there? Is that?
Yep. Yep, so that's, we have one right where his driveway is, kind of where that asphaltic
Yeah.
patch is,
Yeah,
up there.
there's a catch basin there?
No,
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 I think this is the only
Okay.
catch basin.
the only catch basin's next to Beagle's extra driveway, I think.
yeah. So we have a low spot, right next to his driveway, and then we have another one just south of there, about 10 to 20 feet, where the water doesn't, it sits, it's about inch and 3/4 to an inch
Okay,
where the water sits. So, I took that information and then looked at a couple options, one of them being replacing that curb. It looks like if we started from his driveway and worked back.
Kevin, sorry to interrupt you,
Go
but
ahead.
I just want to back up
Yep.
so we can come forward again with information. But why is it low? Is it low because it is settled over time? Or is it low because of the way it was originally constructed?
I think it's just over the time, it's settled in place. And that's why you're seeing where there's low spots in there. I mean, if you look at the second page, the photos there,
is your curb all the way up to Nate's driveway? Kevin?
you
Yeah.
can kind of see where the profile wise,
Yeah.
top of the curbs where it's,
Sure.
get you an idea of where it's,
Yeah, I
it's
got
settled.
you. Yeah, settled down.
So, I mean, there's enough grade if you were to start from his driveway and work back towards the inlet.
Without adjusting the catch basin.
Yep. But when you do that, you're gonna, you're gonna end up raising the curb next to the asphalt. So then you're gonna have to, go out into the traffic lane to try to get that to blend in. So when you start adding in, the cost of the curb and the removal, along with, there's about 3 panels of sidewalk on the back side where it tips, doesn't tip towards the street, it tips towards the boulevard on the back side. So we'd have to go in and replace roughly about 3 panels, do some milling, mill out the asphalt. And I just assumed we would have to do a 45-foot wide by 15 feet out into the center line. That's, just assuming. It could be less than that. I mean, this is probably the worst case scenario. And then some traffic control. More than likely, we'd have to do something there. That cost came in at roughly about $9,000, which is pretty expensive.
Now, is that addressing, what you're just articulating, is that addressing just the street, or does that also address the depressed sidewalk as well?
Yes, both.
Both?
Both of them. Yep, the sidewalk and the curb.
Replacing the sidewalk?
Yeah, about 3 panels because it doesn't
Okay,
tip towards
yeah.
the street.
I think right here, as I remember last spring, there's standing water here.
Yeah.
Well,
Basically, if you look at the picture Mark's looking at right now, the last one, it's that area right in front of those bushes,
Yeah.
right behind that sign.
And that, that's probably, over time, that's, settled too.
Yeah, no, I got it.
Yep. And, again, this is the worst case scenario, about $9,000 for that work. Now I look at another option because there is a storm sewer manhole that, unfortunately you can't see it in this photo, but it's just southwest of where the inlet is, out into the center line of the roadway. So if you were to run a new pipe in and drop a inlet about where his driveway opening is, you're gonna have to do a full depth of
you're talking about
asphalt
this
in there.
manhole cover here?
No,
That would be the
That's sanitary,
sanitary. So it'd be south of there,
southwest of there,
All
Derek.
right, all
Yep.
right.
southwest of there.
You're
So if
right.
you were to tie onto that manhole structure and run a new pipe and drop an inlet in, what would that cost be? But the only thing is, we've got, and I'm assuming, I'm pretty comfortable, but it's about 9 inches of asphalt that you have in there right now, and you have to,
So, what if we, go with me on this, kept the curb in there and cut the gutter out of there and just replace the gutter with asphalt? Say, go from that inlet up to Nate's driveway, south side of his driveway entrance. And cut a line, cut the whole gutter width out, and laid a strip of new asphalt down there that would get us to that grade. You're saying we have to mill out another 10 feet out into the highway to get that to be an acceptable transition?
just to try to blend it in, because when
Why?
I looked at it, about
Difference is making.
Well, when I figured the grade out was gonna be about 2 inches of difference in elevation. At halfway, from the inlet to his driveway, about halfway, if we run that grade, up straight grade, it'd be about a 2 inch,
2 inches will be below the existing asphalt
yep,
at about the inlet.
2 inches lower, about midpoint between the inlet and the driveway opening. If you were to run a straight grade, because you
Okay,
could
but-
get enough grade to make that work. It was like a 0.5%. So you'd have, somehow you gotta blend that into the, out into the roadway to have a good.
Yeah, but do we
fit.
really have to transition it that far?
You probably wouldn't have to.
I mean, if you took, let's just say theoretically, take that lip off that we'd create somehow.
Yep.
I mean, really, what difference does it make the rest of the, all the way up and down 35, the
Right.
curb is not pristine. So, I mean, I
Yep.
can't see going to a large extent to make this a perfect engineering project.
Yeah, and again, this is just the,
No, I
worst
know,
case
Kevin,
scenario.
I'm just saying
Yeah,
it's like putting a bow tie on a pig a little bit. And
yeah.
if we get the water drained from Nate,
That's a lot of the cost. I mean, when you look at it, the 2 inch asphaltic pavement,
yeah.
the milling, and then the traffic control, you're looking at, Probably about $5,000 for that work. And I think you could cut it
Oh,
back.
man, we can't cut the gutter out of there and just go down there and get some asphalt in yet this fall? And see how it works?
You mean like pull the curb and gutter out?
No,
and just-
leave the curb there, just, saw cut it, let where the gutter meets the curb, if you will. Knock that out of there, so we still have a curb there, and just fill in with asphalt.
You mean about here, so this water would drain from here, that's
No,
what
no.
you mean?
I'm talking about taking the gutter out,
Lift that low spot.
and then so we can achieve the drainage we need, to get to the inlet. And then as far as the sidewalk goes, cut the whole boulevard down.
Mark, you've seen this water for several years. What's your take on it?
Well, I know we have a standing water problem there and everything else, but my thing is, I agree with Kevin, especially with you having that turn lane there and everything else. I'm afraid if we just make if we don't get the approach out in the street some, to actually, mill it out, I'm not saying go out that far, I think you're gonna have a problem with traffic driving on that edge. That's,
What are the other pictures that he took? I didn't see those.
Snow
Yeah.
pictures, I
Oh,
think he wants.
Pass those down.
Yeah, I mean, you go in there and try to do the minimum as you can. I think you
Yeah,
can
I'm just
definitely cut
throwing-
it down
I'm just
from,
throwing an extreme fix at you and seeing, working backwards, and Mark brought up the catching a tire and maybe pulling somebody over. I understand that the transition necessary, but
Mhm.
for $9,000 is gonna be tough.
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
I
this
think
is-
you could
this
cut
is
it down.
expensive.
I think you could get it around between 5 and 6.
Still expensive.
Yeah,
That's a lot
still,
to go.
it's not a cheap
No,
fix.
and, as far as traffic lanes, I mean, I've driven that stretch of road for a long time. People don't start pulling over to turn lane. Hell, they turn from the center double yellow, for Christ's sakes, to go right. So-
I see quite a few people driving on that edge, especially if somebody's turning in the Owens. 'Cause then it's
Is it?
swinging around them, yeah.
Oh, to go around if,
Yep.
all right, yeah, all right. Well, if there's a big drop there, they ain't gonna turn. They'll have to stay and wait, $10,000 that, no way.
What do you have for milling on their estimate, Kevin?
Um,
You want me looking at this?
about $1,900. And we just envisioned they'd come in with like a skid steer with one of those portable mill
Yeah,
machines
okay.
up front.
Yeah.
It's just not big enough to bring a
Right.
big machine in.
Yeah.
But, and unfortunately, it's such a small project, a lot of it's just getting,
I know, getting somebody up here to do it, yeah.
yep, that's where the costs start elevating.
Mhm.
And if we could, work under traffic, with cones and stuff, you could save some dollars there, obviously.
Purely from an engineering standpoint, with no other consideration, just responding as an engineer, what's your recommendation? Give us something to sort of chew on rather than be shooting here in all kinds of directions.
Option one, between the two of them is what should be done. I think you need to go in, replace the curb, and then try to minimize how much you're gonna end up having to go into the roadway. With what we have out there right now.
Is this continuing to sink in your estimation? Is the problem what we see now what it is, or is the problem going to get worse over time if nothing is done? Again, from an engineering point of view, no other consideration. Question.
I think the majority of the settling has already taken place. This curb's probably been in for how many years?
300.
It's been quite a while.
it's,
Quite a while, in other words.
well, I mean, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
not a very
Yeah.
good situation now. It getting worse is somewhat irrelevant. It's the pictures Nate has, it's not a good program there. The 9,000 is definitely not a good program.
No, that's pretty expensive.
You understand we're working from,
Yeah.
there's just, you know,
There's no way to move that down towards going north at all, the
inlet,
inlet.
then we're
Attach-
probably talking 4,000
That-
bucks.
Oh, attach onto it. I don't know
We've been
how
doing
it comes,
that all
I don't know
summer,
how it comes
fixing
across.
it.
You know how it
It's
comes
so-
across of you attaching onto it and just basically pulling it north. I don't know how hard it is to do something like that, so
You still have to
That's
take the
nasty.
curb out,
you do, okay.
and that inlet's pretty shallow the way it is. It's probably only about,
Afraid it'd be too flat. I don't think you'd get
2
any
feet
flow.
deep.
You'd get ice building up in there and we'd be right back to the same problem in the winter times.
I mean, it's something, we'd have to look at next, if we're gonna do the work, it'd be next year.
Well, I can certainly recognize there's a problem. I can recognize that it would be a pain in the rear to be living right by that standing water. I can also recognize the fact that we don't have $9,000.
No, is
I
there,
can't believe we can't get rid of that 2-inch lip. You're talking about one pass with a 5-foot or 4-foot wide machine? Should be enough, right?
2 inches, I mean, yeah, I think you could get it to
I mean,
work.
does it really matter
Yeah.
if there's a quick drop off
Yeah.
there? I mean, are we,
You don't want
As
anything,
long as you go out in the street, I'd say 4 to 5 feet, so that you could make it gradual, but for you to say just to work on the gutter line like you were talking before, I'm afraid there'd be an edge there and traffic would be dropping into that.
yeah.
If we could get out in the street some, you could taper it more.
if it was me fixing it, it wouldn't, I'd live with an extreme taper to it.
I'm gonna
I'd be
be,
doing it by hand somehow.
Yeah, I mean, you would be outside the driving lanes. It's 15
I
feet
mean, it'd
wide,
be-
12 feet's kind
No,
of
I'm-
common. I think you could get by with what you're saying, 4 feet out with just one swap through there with one milling.
and this is a winter problem, yeah?
Winter and summer, when it rains, the water sits in there too. Like if my sprinkler systems go off at night and I come out the next morning, there's water sitting in that hole. It's not all the way out into the road, but it sits there.
On the sidewalk.
It sits, it'll sit
The low spot.
in the low spots out on,
Oh, the road too.
the road too.
So you're sprinkling the street?
Well, no, I mean where it comes and drains down off the sidewalk, it'll drain into that hole.
Goes out his driveway.
Well, because what I'm thinking is, I know we've got standing water in other places in the village, and then we also have this beautiful skid steer that we bought and purchased, and looking at the winter issue, I mean, if you see the big banks of snow that we've got there, I mean, I don't see, can we take them down? I mean, can we take that down with the bucket? And in order to try to so you don't have as much snow melt or as much whatever there. It's just I mean, because we got a budget right now that I don't know if it's going to fly when we have to go vote on it this month, and we don't have $10,000 or whatever it is in the budget. I mean, this is a single property. I mean, I know we clean up stuff around other parts of the village where we don't get it into the catch basins. I mean, hell, my street, I mean, down at the, I don't know what it's going to be with that new little patch job they did on there. But at the corner of Michelson and Cedar, I mean, there's standing water there. I mean, I know there's other places we have standing water, but a $10,000 bill or $9,000 bill I mean, if we've got, a watt, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what we're going to do with that.
Some of those photos looks like maybe the inlet is, I mean, the snow is covered over the top
Plugged
of it.
over. I mean, that's what I'm saying. And
From what I can, to me, it
lift
looks
that
like
low
some of
spot,
it.
or patch that low spot and let it run.
And, unfortunately, that inlet
Where
is
is the
fairly
inlet in
shallow.
relation to your mailbox?
It's south.
Yeah, by the front of that pickup truck.
Okay, so it'd be right about in here?
Further
Here?
down, Darrell. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, down by that signpost. Yeah,
More down here?
Just past the
Oh,
sign.
so it's got
Further
ice,
down.
well, maybe it's right there. Maybe it looks like it's right there.
Well, it might be. It's hard to say.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, looks like it might be right about there. It looks like it's,
right. No, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. I mean, you get,
It might impede it, but there's the fact that it's low, if the snowbank or no snowbank, the water would be draining out of there if it could. And the snow is probably not helping it, but,
Yeah, and typically when you get the shallow storms that are like that, they're just more prone to freezing up too. So,
We go out on those, a lot of those Sixth Street inlets and everything else, we have to salt during the winter, just to try to keep them open. And some of them just do not open up just because they are too shallow. Even if the salt you dump in them, they open for a while and then they, next time you get a snowstorm between us and the highway department out there plowing snow, you get snow back into them, and pretty soon they're iced back over again, you're back out there clearing them out. We try to do it as much as we can, but, it's one of those things that happens.
well, Nate, I don't think we're gonna be able to solve this tonight, but I really appreciate you bringing us very specifically up to speed on this. I know it's been kind of batted around a little bit. It's never been in front of this committee, I guess, for consideration. We're starting to see the dimensions of the solution here, and you can see us gulping it. How do we do that?
Right. No, I appreciate it. I just want to see what we can do. If like I said, I'm willing to help. I'm willing to go out in there in the winter and push the water back to it, but I don't think that I should be doing that all the time and keeping that area clean so the water does go back to it. That's. I mean, that's what you see.
What time of year was this picture taken, Nate?
It was like in
Spring?
spring, yeah, right when it was starting to.
Stuff starting to melt.
Right.
Um,
And I mean, that sidewalk, when it does melt and freeze and melt and freeze, I mean, it is, I know for a fact that it is slippery underneath there, because when I shovel it and try to keep it clear, I try to throw some ice melt there just to keep it from somebody slipping and falling when they're running down 35 or whatever, or walking their kids or what it might be. And I that's why I asked whose responsibility it is, because I need to, if that's the case, I'll have to keep a path there between that boulevard there to try to push the water out into the road, if there is water, try to let it drain out there so it'll drain back to the drain. So.
Any more?
I think at the very least, as a parting shot here, where as far as this is discussion, but to start to do something, I agree with Stan. I think at the very least this winter, Public Works should probably pay attention a little more to another inlet we got to take care of and work around, and perhaps send that skid down there and clean up that boulevard so we have a little relief along there, and take care of the whole sidewalk and go right down past Jim's house and keep it clean. Of course, we're getting water running down, from the north end of the streets, but if we can keep that inlet cleaner, it might give us a better chance.
Right. And I guess see what it does to see, and I guess we look at it when it starts thawing again and see what's going on. Or even in the winter, I guess we look at it and just see what we're seeing.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Nate.
Yeah, thanks, Nate.
Yeah, I think your suggestion, Stan, is right. I mean, let's see what we can do to at least keep it as clean as possible.
I mean, there's a lot of places. I think if we open, this is another one like a block down with the sidewalk that we dealt with earlier in the spring. There's a lot of spots where we could do some. Win the lottery, we can go. Let's go.
Nate, you want this other picture? Or? Okay, we'll keep that in the record then. Thank
See
you.
later, Nate.
Thanks. Well, we've been sensitized to that. If there's nothing else, we'll just consider that discussion.
Discussion.
Move on to Pacer ratings.
Okay. So where we're at, Mark's been out and evaluated all the streets. Took that information and regenerated a new map. So you have what the 2009 currently is, and then what's proposed for 2012, 2013. They're good for 2 years. And kind of, I'll just go through, you know, the major changes here. Obviously, with some of our street reconstruction projects back in 2010, 2011, 10th Street, St. Croix Station, those two streets, they've been upgraded to a 10 now. They're shown in as yellow. The village has done some seal coating, and there's 4 of them. Deer Path Circle, Hunter Circle, Partridge Lane, and South Street. So those are gonna be changed up to an 8 now, with the seal coating that has taken place. And then from there, we go to, you know, over the 2 years, looking, you know, haven't done any improvements to them, but, you know, what they've changed to. So back in the 2007 project, some of those streets now have been downgraded from a 10 to a 9 and an 8, along with 6th Street, Highway 35. And then also a bunch of other streets. I won't go through all of them, but there's 30 of them. They've changed from a orange to a green, from an 8 to a 7. And then on the second page, from a green to a blue, there's 10 of them there. And then on the last ones here, we have 4 of them, Pine Street, Cedar Drive, Prairie Drive, and Webster Street. They changed from a 6 to a 5.
Kevin, I understand why this little yellow dot is at the edge of the school. That's that intersection that we repaired.
Yep.
But from a logic standpoint, just having that intersection upgraded to yellow doesn't seem to make any sense. I mean, it's the street that we would do something with.
Yep.
So why just show that repaired intersection?
Well, if you look at the 2009, we had that little spot allocated to, it was a 3 at that time.
Okay.
So just to keep things consistent with what we did in '09, we upgraded that to a 10 and 11.
And what are we doing with this tonight, approving it?
Yeah, just you're approving this to have it sent to the state.
Yeah, it needs to be sent in. And the date it needs to be sent in is,
December 15th.
okay.
Yep.
And how would we dispute that if we didn't agree with this?
Good question, I don't know.
We'd have
What is
to
the
talk
answer?
to Mark,
So, I mean,
because he's
well,
the one who
he
evaluated
I
them.
mean,
Yeah, I
I
know.
see why we're approving it.
It's just basically a formality.
Okay.
All it does is give you a chance to steal more money from the government, right?
I don't
Or
know.
get a grant.
All I know is I don't know how
That-
it would change any
That
of the
might be true,
colors
but I
of it.
think what we're approving is the fact that it was done.
Done, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
then,
well, it's done. Just
I'll
prove it.
move approval of the
Pacer
2011
changes.
Pacer map update.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the work that has been completed on the Pacer ratings and the upgraded information would be submitted to the state by Kevin prior to the 15th of December.
Yep. That's correct.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That is carried. This will complete it then for 2 years. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yep, it's a 2-year
Two-year
process.
process. Understand the point you're making.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Further discussion.
We put agenda item 5, review of the Vision Triangle ordinance and procedures on here because we did spend a little bit of time looking at it last month, and I asked committee members to look over the ordinance, and we'd put it on the agenda this month to see if there were any observations or suggestions. I've had a chance to look at them. I talked to Mark Ekblad a little bit about them. I think the ordinance is fine the way it is. I don't see any reason that we would change anything in it, but it's open for discussion. Either of you have anything in the Vision Triangle ordinance that you think ought to be addressed?
Well, my question is, why are we at 35, 35 feet, and it looks like a lot of the other places are 25, 15, somebody goes out to 50, but, I mean, if we, I think we tighten it, if we go down to 15 or whatever, there's gonna be some intersections that maybe don't have to, I mean, there's some we made people cut plants down that were 2.5 feet tall, and we got other intersections that have trees, fences, shrubbery, and that don't meet it. I mean, I can see one from here when I walk out the front door. So, I mean, I'm curious as to why, what's the 35 feet magic number?
Well, I'm going to turn the discussion over to Mark Ekblad to lead. He's familiar with this ordinance.
Yeah, basically, the 35, well, basically, it's been in our code book as a 35 each direction, 35-foot vision triangle ever since I initially started here in the village. And basically, that's what this is about. Do you guys feel that it's a need to, should this ordinance be changed? Should it be on a case by case? I guess that's what public safety is requesting, because we do have certain areas that
This got kicked off by which?
came out of public safety.
incident? Yeah.
Public safety center.
Which
it's
resident?
I think
Or
it's
Wisconsin.
Sixth in Wisconsin.
Sixth in
Sixth.
Wisconsin was the latest
The
one.
perennial garden there?
Right.
That was it. And what was the issue there? They couldn't see, or just that
They had a
something was
number of,
planted?
they had a number of complaints of people coming off of Wisconsin Street could not see northbound.
Oh,
Traffic coming out, there was quite a few, near misses, including my public works truck was almost hit one day because of somebody coming out of there, I know.
but they
there's-
actually had some complaints?
Yes, they did. Police department was acting on complaints. Actually, this was 2 years in a row that
I,
they've received complaints regarding the planning at that intersection.
I don't ultimately care a whole lot. So in that regard, I don't see a big reason to change it. If everybody's aware of what it is, and I think most of the time it is, since it's been in place, the other issues that I know we've had, this is not the first time it's come up, where people have planted things in the wrong place or something changed. It is as nice a looking garden as it was, if it generated some complaints, and it is a busy street, I think, I don't know. I don't see going through a big effort to change the distances and that sort of thing, because we're talking about one example, one incident.
One of the things that I talked to Mark about is some of the other examples of when where there is not a consistency in the community. Some communities had different dimensions at different places, and I just thought that the similarity of having, or the consistency, I guess, of having the dimensions the same throughout the village makes sense, so that you're not saying, well, in this area it's this way, and another area it's another way. I think that would just be
Yeah,
bizarre.
I see it's gonna be way too confusing to do that, because if you have some corners like that one's gonna be 35 feet each direction, and we're gonna go to another corner and say it's only 15 feet each direction, we're gonna have some people pretty upset.
No,
It better be,
Yeah.
I could say if you're gonna change it, go down to 25 feet,
Here-
whatever, but,
here's-
keep it consistent.
Yeah, but very simply, we don't have any other issues other than this one spot.
Oh, we have a
Oh.
list of properties that happens. Daryl's been on the list before.
I actually had two
Before.
trees that I had to remove
No, but I
several
mean,
years ago.
currently, I know there's
We
been
have current-
people. Currently, we still have issues with people?
We have people that are not in compliance. with
There are
the
some
triangle.
places not in compliance, yeah.
Oh, okay.
that's the only thing I want is consistency. I mean, if it's 35 feet, if it's 50 feet, if it's 100 feet, I don't really care. But we're not enforcing it consistently throughout the village. I mean, if you're gonna, those people that had to cut stuff down, we've got other places that, it's not consistent.
Well, I think there are two issues here. One is the ordinance itself and the dimensions, and that's why it came to us from public safety. The enforcement of it is a public safety issue. I think from our standpoint, I'm not hearing,
I'm gonna move to, well, if we're not taking an action to change it,
no, I don't think
What do
we
we
need to, I don't think
do
we need to
anything?
do anything. If we're fine, it is 35, if we're fine, then we say, we're fine with it, then the enforcement of it is back to public safety, and they need to enforce the ordinance that
See,
we've
well,
got.
that's the other thing that it's in this code book. Our code book is actually, our code book, according to the way it's stated in our code book, that it's public works responsibility to enforce this. But back years ago, when this came through, it actually came through this committee, and we took it back to public safety, and we actually had the village attorneys involved in it. The village attorney said that no, since it is a public safety issue, public safety should, the police department should be the ones, so what we did is, myself and the chief both signed the letters that go out to the person when they're in violation. An officer actually goes out and, actually our patrol sergeant goes out and actually does an evaluation every year around the village. Then he sends a letter to us stating these are the ones. Myself and the chief, I prepared a letter, chief signs it with me, it's sent out to the residents. Then an officer after that, if people not come in compliance, an officer actually goes to the house and tries to meet with the residents to tell them you're not in compliance. At that time, we go in, we stake the area, just like we did at your place, showed you where vision triangle is, and that's, basically how it's done now. But yeah, in our actual code book, which I would like to have the code book changed because it should, since this is a public safety issue, it should not be under the public works, should not be the ones contacting people, which actually should be public safety. Just like it's done in most other communities.
Okay, but the issue in front of us is whether or not we want to make a
we're gonna
change in
change
the
our
ordinance,
code,
and
yes.
I'm not hearing any desire from this committee to change the ordinance. Correct?
Well, the change of the ordinance would be, is it, in the code book, is it public safety or is it public works? I mean, if we have an inconsistency in the, it says it's our responsibility, but we don't have any enforcement. I mean, we can write them letters or whatever, but isn't that safety that's what's driving it? So, I mean, there should be a change, but I don't think we can do anything at this particular meeting. I think
I
we
don't
have
see that we can.
to adjust it, at another, or move it to another or another meeting where we can have, discuss it and say, hey, or meet with them. I don't know what it's gonna take, but I mean, we're not consistent. That's the one thing I don't like. And then, is it necessary to be that far out? I mean, because, we've got places that aren't in compliance.
Right, but we're talking about enforcement, not the dimensions of the ordinance, and the dimension of the ordinance, I think is fine, so, for purposes of this discussion, I think that's it. We've got another fire hydrant that's damaged on Monroe Street.
Basically on, I think you have a report in front of you that it's a report filled out on the first of the month. I was notified by St. Croix Storage that one of the trucks down there unloading struck, basically not one of their trucks, another company delivering to their site actually went around the balance.
Do we know
and
what
took all
truck
of
did it?
Yeah, we have it on the second thing.
Okay.
All their accident information is right there, the insurance information, all that. And then the third page is actually a look at myself, well, I'll show you these. These are actual pictures for taking that day.
okay,
And on them, the hydrant, when one of the ballards came down behind the hydrant and actually struck the 2-inch nozzle on the hydrant, myself and the fire chief, Jim Fry, who's also the waterworks operator, we managed to fix the nozzle on the hydrant, all that. So basically, the thing is just to have bollards replaced. And since we just had this incident happen down in this last summer, another hydrant that got hit and got replaced, basically, we think they should be reinstalled per spec like we did on the other case.
So the procedure would be, we'd repair it, and then there would be an insurance claim that eventually would reimburse us.
Correct.
So what do we need recommendation for?
No, basically, this is just,
Information?
information for you, no recommendation, just got stuck in there.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's one thing about it, if it would come back, if we would have some kind of a problem getting the insurance company to actually pay for it or something like that, then that's something that would have to come back.
Okay. Kevin?
Guess I know there was some discussion at the last committee meeting about salt storage buildings. So we actually have bid out 2 projects, one in Somerset and one in New Richmond. And I forwarded those drawings along with the bid results over to the Public Works Director. Somerset was the smallest one, 24 by 30 foot. And it has the concrete barriers on the side with the steel trusses and the fabric over the top. Low bid on that was $38,000. So they are quite expensive. The one in New Richmond, quite a bit extensive. That one was 50 by 50. That one came in at $90,000. So
Was that with or without salt in it?
So, just
Get an
information.
auto detailing place, you know, like, Jesus.
So it's not gonna be a cheap
We all
item.
know we're not gonna build a building, so. move
On the
with
subject of salt, the letter of understanding that we've got with respect to the city is information.
No, actually, that's underneath, under my supervisor's report, I put that
Okay.
in there.
Well, anything more from you, Kevin?
No, that's it.
Okay.
That's it.
Thanks for those lofty numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Basically, you have the copy of the letter of understanding with you, and then on the back page is actually the, salt storage and handling fees and stuff like that. Basically what this is just, it's, basically our understanding between them when we can actually load. Everything else you see in their loading times are between 6:30 a.m. and 2 o'clock p.m. They would like to have 24-hour advance notice. And basically along with the letter is also that, like I've been telling you, they'd like to have us hold more salt of our own. Basically that is to be able to get us through periods, because if you read it, it said that, during a snow event, they will be unavailable to fill our trucks and stuff like that, basically. And also we can't get salt on weekends, and the only thing is, only problem I really see with this is, if we get a large snow event, large snow or ice event on a weekend, there's a chance we could run out of salt. Basically what we're doing, we are building a second bin in our garage. That'll be able to hold basically about 24, 25 yards in the 2 bins.
If we have a significant need in one snowfall for salt, how much total tonnage would be put down? If you say we can hold 25 tons? That's more than enough for one time, isn't it?
Okay.
Well, it's more than enough for one time, but unless we go through a large, like a freezing rain event, something like that, that's what I'm saying. There is a chance.
And if we are, City Hudson's probably gonna be going through the same thing, right?
Yeah,
So they'll have operators around and they'll have people.
that's what they're saying in their thing, is they don't want us calling them during ice events, because their trucks are tied up on their own things.
And they got a load for us?
Yes.
How does this differ from what our current practice is? Or is this what our current practice is?
This is what our current practice will be this year. Last year, we went up at times with our own machine and loaded when we had to. We could call them whenever they were out. Whenever they had a guy back, they would call us. Whenever their trucks were loading, they would call us, have us come up. I'm hoping that if we get into a situation, I'll still be able to do that. But under this letter of understanding, it doesn't state that.
But this should be workable. If we've got someone on hand, this kind of schedule
All
should be
biggest thing with
workable.
this is we're just gonna have to make sure that we constantly keep our buildings full.
Well, yeah, it'll take some planning. Nothing wrong with planning.
No, and one of the complaints I heard is that, I think their union shop down there, and we were trying to get salt during break time a lot of times or whatever, and they were I heard whining about that, so I
What
mean,
what we did, Stan, is we went when Tom Zuli had us set up to go, and that's when he wants us to go, is when his guys are taking at break time.
okay, well, I
That's when he
mean,
knows he has
yeah,
loaders
but
up there.
he's not a union guy and the other guys are, so I mean, there's a reason that, you know, that, I'm just stating what I heard as a complaint.
Well, we'll work with it. Anything else?
In front of you, you have an email from a resident at 410 Mercheck Circle. Basically, he's called actually a couple years ago, called on this too. He has curb stand is located underneath his blacktop driveway. And he would like to have the village raise it up out of his driveway. And I told him I'd send a letter to you because basically I've had this conversation with him, and it says right in our ordinance, and copy of the ordinance on the back of the letter, it states right in our ordinance that it is the customer, the homeowner's responsibility to make sure that we have availability to that curb stand, because in the case of emergency, if we cannot get on and shut off that water valve, you know, there could be a leak in the house and the village would not be responsible. That's the highlighted part.
This is under his driveway?
Correct.
Not unusual.
Not unusual.
That it ain't our responsibility.
So bottom line is for me, what's the situation?
He would like to have the village
He
come
wants the
in,
village to fix it?
come in,
and he
remove the
should fix it.
driveway, raise his curb stand, and then pay for it.
I want the dogs down there.
Well, the highlighted portion seems pretty clear to me. I sympathize with this problem, but
Yeah,
I guess I don't see that as a village
It's not the
problem.
village responsibility.
Anyone see that differently?
yeah, and I told him that we were having a meeting that I kind of expected him to be here. That's why I made sure I told him I would have it, you know, here, that way.
You had a chance to read that portion of the book?
Is what?
Imagine he has. I don't really see anything we can do.
I don't see what we can do. Seems pretty clear to me.
No, we have
Yeah.
Thanks,
Mark.
Right.
Move to
That it?
adjourn. Shitty.
Gentlemen, we're completed. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Such a pretty man.